and appear to be in the way that I would hope. Thank you.
Less than 6 weeks. If you are here tonight, you'll probably have questions about the job market and are looking for help in guiding your sons and daughters through the process. As I'm sure you know, one of the most important elements of Wake Forest student experience is the Office of Personal and Career Development. OPCD is committed, as you know, to supporting every Wake Forest student as part of their unique career path during and after college. Over the past decade, the team has had great success in providing jobs for over 96% of our graduating class. That number has been consistent for all of our programs, both for the college and for the graduate programs. Tonight, I want to introduce you to Andy Chan. Andy is the leader of OPCD as our vice president. Andy came to Wake Forest 15 years ago after running excuse me, after running the business school at Stanford University. Andy has been incredibly significant in a variety of different programs at Wake and innovation and has put together an incredible team. Andy, I turn things over to you to be able to lead tonight's conversation.
Thank you so much, Brad. And before I begin, I want to say welcome to everyone, but be honest with you, Brad, that actually I didn't run the whole business school at Stanford, although I would have liked to thought I did, but I just ran the Career Center. So I got a little chuckle out of that. Anyways, really been happy to be here at Wake Forest, building the OPCD and overseeing all of the career operations for our college students, our business school students, our team that works with employers. We also have programs for students in high school, like our summer immersion programs. And we have a great set of services and programs for alumni when they're in transition. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those things along the way. But today, what we're going to do is talk a bit about the market, talk about where students are and what we're seeing and things that we're doing with them, but also things that maybe you might consider doing with them to try to help encourage them along the way. I will be inviting one of our key leaders and the author and creator of all of our college to career courses, our associate vice president and professor, Heidi Robinson, who many of you might know. And then we will invite a few of our students and an alum who can share some of their experiences and advice to you, given their experiences so far. We actually will give you an opportunity to ask us questions. There's a Q&A box that you could type in, and our team will enter them directly or pass them over to Heidi and I to try to answer them throughout the discussion or at the end. But I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the job market and some of the trends, try to really put it in the perspective of thinking about a student. If there's one thing that actually we like to communicate to you as parents is the most important thing is more than anything is to think of the word, how can I be as empathetic as possible to my child, and how can I be an encourager? Your child is at a very important time in their lives. In a lot of ways, it can feel quite stressful at the moment, whether it be trying to complete their academics and or trying to think about what's after Wake Forest. And then finally, the fact that they're moving on to a new stage of life where they won't be with all the friends they've made at Wake Forest, which can be a lot of stress. So with all that being said, having empathy and really trying to sort of be with them in this is really important right now. One of the things that's really difficult is the current job market is very confusing and uncertain. Given the overall state of the economy, as many of us are feeling right now, which is uncertainty, it can be really scary. And that the other piece of it is that, interestingly, the actual job market for college students is pretty strong. It's not quite in the same exact place as last year, but interestingly, the number of jobs available to students at this time compared to last year at this time is actually stronger than it was last year. So we might think that given the uncertainty, there are no jobs, and a lot of students may tell each other there's nothing to try for, but there actually is quite a few number of jobs and many in a lot of the most attractive sectors. So we'll get into that in a little bit. One of the things that can happen is that some of the students at Wake Forest have secure jobs. Some of them actually got job offers from their summer internship from their junior year. And students can sometimes second guess themselves, thinking that they made wrong decisions or did something not right because they don't have a job yet. And the reality is it's not the case. This year is very similar to the others where, by the time we get to graduation, maybe half of the students are really sure about what they're doing next. A lot of them have still trying to figure out if they're going to graduate school, Some of them actually had planned for the summer, so they weren't even trying to get a job. Others had to finish up their academics, and so they didn't have time to get a job. Some actually had to go network back in places hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from Wake Forest. And it's easier to get a job networking than to do it while you're in school. So there's a lot of reasons why that happens. It's not that different than end of the year. But students who don't have something right now can feel a lot of stress, like something is not fair and something went wrong and there's nothing out there, when in fact that's far from the truth. And one of the things that we highly advise is come to see one of our coaches in the career office, have them talk to you about their personal situation, what they're looking for, and we can help them create a plan and give them a plan of attack and give them some hope actually to realize that the reason why we have 97% of students who've gotten jobs within 6 months of graduation, so every year for the last 4 years, and the only really not so great year was COVID when it was 95%, was because students work hard after they graduate. They stay in touch with their coaches, they use the Wake Forest network, and they utilize our alumni personal career development office. So I just want to keep reinforcing, like, if it doesn't happen by graduation, it will happen as long as your student stays active and sticks with us. One of the things that also can happen is that sometimes people have been trying to do a job search for a while and it just isn't working out maybe the way they had thought. And partially we can see some students may have tried to do it all on their own, and their materials or their pitch or their interview skills aren't quite up to the level they need to be to get the kinds of jobs they want. So again, our office can help with that. And then the other thing is that I think a lot of times students are hoping that this will be really quick, and that if I just apply to a few jobs online, like they'll get back to me and it'll be done. And in fact, it's really not like that, especially in today's day and age where AI and technologies is doing a lot of work, both on behalf of the student and on the employer, that's making it actually more difficult. So the importance of networking is huge, and the Wake Forest network is very strong. People are very responsive. They want to help people, but it doesn't mean like they'll have a job at the end of it after one conversation. It takes some time. And again, we can help students think about that. One of the things that I will also say is, so maybe a student came to the OPCD all the way back their freshman year or sophomore year, and they felt like they didn't get what they wanted. A couple things. One, our office keeps changing and getting better, and I can assure you we have actually more tools and resources available to students today than we've ever had. And the other thing is that the students change, and the students actually sort of learn new things about how they're thinking about life, and maybe what they were looking for back at that time isn't the same as it is now. And that a student can see the same coach, they can see a different coach. That we have a lot of coaches, both in the college and the business school, that can be helpful to your student. So I would say give it another try. It'll be worth it, I assure you. Another thing that's happening in the market around challenges is companies are hiring very differently than they have in the past. Like many companies actually are, like you heard, taking only interns from their junior year. And so that can be challenging. I know students will feel like, well, that was sort of unfair. Well, the reality is that they actually still hire people if 2 or 3 years after people graduate from college. In fact, there's a lot of turnover and a lot of opportunities. So if that dream company didn't happen right out of college, it doesn't mean that won't happen later. Again, we have many, many students and alum who we can think of who worked at a company that wasn't their dream company. In 2 or 3 years, they're working at that place because they got the experience, they built up their skills, their confidence, their network, and were able to move on. The other thing that's happening is that a lot of organizations are not, they don't, and they haven't, but they're really not now recruiting in a very formal way. It's very just in time. They have a job open, they might put it out on the market 2 months before it's open. They might put a deadline, I'll just make it up. They might put a deadline of, let's say it's May 1st. But if they got candidates this week and they got enough that were good, they'll shut the opportunity down and won't even look at any candidates after this time, even though the job may still be up there saying it's May 1 deadline. So the reason why I say that is that if your student's interested in an opportunity, you have to apply right away. You can't wait till a deadline. And you have to also network at the same time to try to find ways to meet people outside of just relying on the internet to do all the work for you. But the good part about that is that this just-in-time nature means that there are opportunities that come up now, next month, this summer, in the fall, that are looking for young people, young talent coming out of college in 4 to 8 weeks, and there will be great opportunities that come up. We have actually quite a few right now, financial services opportunities full-time for students that are available that students are like, whoa, if I knew these companies were available now, I wouldn't have taken that job before. But the reality is there's still opportunities that come up along the way. And so don't feel like it's over. I like to use the phrase, it's not over till it's really over. And in recruiting, it's really never really over. The last thing is on this is more on the positive side is that, a lot of us have heard about this tool called Handshake. Again, some students are using it like it is almost as used as much as they're using Instagram or Netflix. And other students may have used it a year or two ago and think, yeah, that didn't work for me, so there's nothing out there. But again, Handshake is a tool that basically thousands of universities across the country are using, every Fortune 500 company in the country is using, and thousands of companies are in that database. And so they're always updating the way it works. And so the way it works today is different than it was literally 6 months ago or a year ago. So there's an opportunity for your student to go in there and use that exactly in the right kind of way that will lead to being able to get access to opportunities if they put in their interest. We're actually going to talk about it with Heidi a little bit more about how to use Handshake really well. But right now there's 63,000 jobs posted in the system. And the best ones that our students are interested in are in sales, marketing, business analytics, customer service, and then there's some administrative and teaching roles too. And so there's quite a few things in there that you can find that will be really positive. The other thing that is happening is that, many students right now might find thinking about grad school as an option, and we can help students think about that. We can help them with their personal statements. We can help them think about the right kind of programs for them. So coming to our office is possible as a way to help them through grad school. One last thing I'll say is that employers love Wake Forest students. And a lot of you might know this, but I've said it because I've said it before, is that whenever we talk to employers about our students and about our graduates, they'll say, Wake Forest students, they are the best. And the reason why is that they have incredible interpersonal skills. They are great team players, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And we don't see that from a lot of other students today. And so I think that is one of those things that you can count on, that your child has gotten the Wake Forest experience that our employers really like. I'm going to finally just wrap up with a couple quick thoughts. Finding a job is never easy, and that's something that people always perceive. Why isn't it easier? It's just hard because it's competitive. It's very obtuse. It's different for every single organization. And so you have to treat the process like it is a job, or it's like a daily training, like you're trying to figure out how to run a marathon over 3 to 6 months, and you got to do a little bit every single day. And we're trying to help our students think about doing a little bit every day to help them in the process, and that our coaches can help them with that. I think that's really key, is that finding a job is like a new game. It's not an easy one to master. And when our coaches can help our students, and when our coaches know what our students are interested in, when opportunities come up, they'll come up through Handshake, but we'll also forward them on to students in a personal way to say, hey, I saw this opportunity that looked like something you're interested in because you told me what you're interested in. And we actually can help them personally if they're willing to let us get to know them. I'm not going to talk about Handshake a lot right here. I think Heidi will go into that a little bit further, but I just want to reemphasize a complete profile can really help that system work for you in the very best way. And it can, by actually saving searches and using collections in the system can actually help you find the things that are of greatest interest to you. Lastly, and this is one that I will tell you, is that we try to tell students really be open to applying to a lot of jobs and opportunities, and also looking at things maybe a little bit outside of the box, or something what it might be the entry doorway to get your foot into the door, as opposed to finding the perfect thing. We usually use this ratio. 50 applications might sort of hopefully will get you 10 interviews and get you one offer. And I know that sounds like a lot, but the reality is you can apply to a lot of jobs online through Handshake without that much effort. It does take some effort to tailor. And where the effort is actually taking the time to do the research on the company and in the network, whether it's your personal network, your family network, your friend network, the Wake Forest network, your high school network, that they can help connect you to people who might work at that company, that relationship could lead to the interview. Without it, it's much harder to get the interview, because they oftentimes are asking, does anyone in the company know this person? And when someone in the company says yes, they're more likely to interview them. And so we try to work hard with the student to figure out how to play that particular strategy. One last thing I'll tell you is if you happen to be working at a company that you hire a lot of early talent and you'd be open to having Wake Forest students consider your company, like please reach out to our employer relations team. I think we'll have a link given to you right now about where you can do that because we're always looking to ask our parents to join the Wake Forest network as employers. And we would love to be able to work with your talent management and HR recruiting team. All right, so that's my top level, what's going on in the market, how to think about how ways we can help students, but I'm going to get into a little bit further with Heidi. We're going to talk about some of the common challenges and see how she talks to students about this and the approach that we take. So Heidi, say hello to all of our parents out there.
Oh my goodness. I love getting to say hello to our parents. We are so grateful that we get to come alongside your students and help them as their allies, finding the things that matter to them. So I'm excited. We have some wonderful students who are going to share, oh, and one alum, who are going to be sharing their stories. And I want you to know as parents that your child's story, your student's story matters to us.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm going to ask you a kind of question that I oftentimes hear from students, and I'm sure there are things their students have told their parents. And so maybe you can tell me a little about what you tell them to try to help move them forward. So one is just, I can't find any jobs that are of interest to me, and so maybe there's nothing out there. What should I do?
You know, it's interesting. I will say that that phrase, once one student says, I can't find anything I'm interested in, there's almost this whole idea that that thought gets in the water. And so sometimes once one student says it, gosh, it just sounds good for another to have that as an answer too. So I always say, well, let's go ahead and check out what the options look like today. Because in Handshake right now, there are new opportunities that are being posted constantly. In fact, I have been this spring in particular, I would say, I am particularly impressed at the number of companies who are still recruiting within industries that we would typically think were finished in the fall. We've seen things coming through in financial services. We've seen things coming through in consulting. And typically we would think of those as very seasonal, that those things might have been finished in October. So I guess that's a long way of saying, I will tell a little story. I sat down with a senior in my office last week, and as we were going through Handshake, at one point she looked up at me and she said, "This is fun." And I said, "Oh, it is fun. It is actually a lot of fun. And using Handshake well and effectively is one of the things that sometimes can go under the radar for students, right? Because it feels like it is just a place to go in and plug in a one item or piece of information in the search. And of course, what we really need our students to do is to go ahead and update their skills. We need them to update their interest areas, the kinds of locations that they're interested in, because that's how they can make Handshake work for them. In some ways, I think one of the phrases that we have all said is, Handshake will do your job search for you while you sleep. And in fact, that is something that is really helpful to students to know that they're not doing it on their own. Not only do they have us, but then they also have Handshake to help them find things of interest. For a student who's kind of stuck, Andy, one of the places I love to take them is to our first destination reports. And parents and students can access those on our OPCD website under the Student tab, Explore Majors. Clicking on one of those majors opens an entire set of information. And one of those important pieces is actually it tells the reader where those students in that major have gone. And it's from 2004 until 2023. And a really great way for students to get some ideas about what may energize them beyond what they may have heard from their friends.
Great. Thank you for those couple resources and thoughts around that. Another question is I applied to a job or lots of jobs, but I don't hear anything back. And it's just really getting frustrating. Like, is this even worthwhile?
I think that is a really difficult thing for students. Our students are humble. They have a high EQ. And because of this, the following up after the interview, beyond the thank you, it feels really hard. And that's because they are gracious human beings. And one of the things I hear from students a lot is, I don't want to be pushy. So one of the important messages that I think our students can have and receive not only from us, but also from their trusted allies and their families is that it's okay to follow up. I'm a former basketball player. My coach always said, when you shoot, follow your shot. In other words, go on after it once you give it your all. And that's what I tell students, whether they are applying and haven't heard back for a week after their thank you email. It's all right to reach back out. In fact, it's expected. There are even some companies that if a student doesn't reach back out, they actually are cold from the list or the set of applicants because they want people who are able to be assertive. So it's a very, very interesting thing about that. And I think one of the things that I think for our students is that networking is really important. And what recruiters have said to us is that the most effective thing that a student can do is to find the allies, our Wake Forest alumni within the organization and reach out to them. It is often one of the best advantages that our students have because our alumni base is so robust.
Yeah, I remember hearing in one of our conversations with the recruiters where the actual recruiter themselves get so many LinkedIn messages, they're
Yes.
not able to respond, but the alumni are able to, and that's a better person to reach out to through LinkedIn. And so I think that's a interesting sort of nuance that we just need to, we always remind our students.
And just adding to what you said, Andy, our students also have something that is unique to Wake Forest that is called the Wake Network. And students must access that through their Gmail, through their Wake Forest email address. But what they can do is an advanced search. They can go ahead and search by company, they can search by location, and they can search by name. And that is helpful for students because there is actually more information, more contact information for students on the Wake network than is even available through LinkedIn. So that is a very helpful thing for students to know. And there may actually be parents of former students who are affiliated with different organizations, and that can be helpful too. Everyone wants to help our college students. And in fact, one of the things we say in class is no deacon left behind. And that is because the nature of our school is such that we all want to help each other, and that includes our alumni and our parents.
Yes, I mean, I think you've tapped something that, I mean, one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is we're trying to help parents both help their own students, but also be open to helping other students should they be contacted by them. So again, to the extent you're a parent, you're on LinkedIn, you can join our Wake Forest Career Connectors sort of group, which is a group we point our students to. And so it's basically anyone in the Wake Forest community, and that you can come and be part of that. That's great if you're willing to be a networking contact for a student. Let me go to another question. So, some students after their junior year, maybe were hoping to get an internship or take their internship and then get a full-time job, or maybe because they didn't get a full-time job offer, they think they're not good enough, or, maybe something went wrong and they're not going to be employed because of the fact they didn't get an internship. Can you talk a little bit to how we help students see like that's not a measure of both their capability of getting a job, but also at the same time, what are other ways they can get additional skills if they need to uplift their experience base?
Absolutely. And I would say that's sort of one of that particular idea about the junior internship making or breaking your opportunities post-graduation. That is something that students talk about, or it may seem when we're looking at our peers that that is what happened. And the facts are these. There are fewer return offers from junior year internships than there were in the past. It's just not something that's happening anymore. So to the degree that our students can understand that that junior year internship, whether they had it or they didn't, is not the indicator of whether or not they'll be employed post-graduation. So that's one piece that I like for students to know. Second, students in their junior year internship role don't necessarily have to think of that as the only place where they get very valuable opportunities to gain professional experience. We have students who are working during the summer, and they may not feel that that's an internship per se, but a lot of the work that they're doing in our community is building professional skills, whether it's at a nonprofit or on one of their on-campus organizations. So I think one of the things we can do is help students tell that story and really highlight the professional experience that they're getting in a lot of the things they're doing every day, including their coursework. We are very enthusiastic about helping students identify and highlight the different projects that they have and to understand the power of the work they're doing in the classroom. And then I would say, finally, for students who feel like they just might want something else to add to their resume or to their internship experience bucket, internships happen online right now. Parker Dewey is a wonderful website. And what it does, it's an opportunity for students to have what are called micro internships, project-based, paid, and students can complete them in as few as 3 hours and as many as 20 to 40 hours. It's really up to the student, but it is an internship. It adds to the skills that they have. On top of that, Forage is a great place to do all sorts of projects for different companies whose names we know, from Lululemon to Bank of America. And doing those projects, students get to go ahead and talk about that and have their project reviewed by someone internally. And the companies say that if a student completes a Forage project, the company will keep that record. And not only will they get feedback, they get a leg up when they apply.
Those are great. I mean, one of the things that I find really can help a student stand out is doing something like that, because they took the extra effort. Just because it's offered doesn't mean all students do it. I mean, that's the one thing I try to help students remember. So, if they don't have time right now before the end of the year, even at the end of the year, they can do one of these things while they have, a few days available, and all of a sudden they have like a whole nother level of experience under their belt that they can include on their major. One other thing that we talk about is LinkedIn Learning is another tool that all Wake Forest students have full free access to. If you're interested in learning, whether it's data analytics or data visualization or digital marketing, like there's all ways that you can learn more about those things to help you get more comfortable talking about them in interviews and even adding a certificate on your LinkedIn profile and on your resume. So I'm going to stop here for the moment, because I would love to have you have our students and alum come on board to share some of their experience, and I'll come back to you in a little bit after you're done talking to them.
Thank you, Andy. I am very excited, parents, for you to get to meet some very special folks, two of our seniors, one of our young alums, and I will invite Knox and Sophie and John, if you don't mind turning on those cameras. We're excited to introduce you. In fact, what I'd love to have you do is for you all to introduce yourselves and let folks know who's in the room, so to speak. Knox, would you like to kick us off? Name, major, and sort of where you are in the senior year?
Yes, I'd love to. Hi, everybody. My name is Knox Green. I'm a senior politics and Spanish double major, which is crazy that graduation is coming up soon, but bittersweet. I'm excited to be moving to DC this coming summer to work for Palantir Technologies as an operations analyst in their DC office.
Thank you, Knox. Sophie?
Hey guys, I am Sophie and I am from Winston-Salem, and I am a communications major and then a double minor in film media studies as well as marketing communications. And I am a senior as well. I am in the midst of the applying process, so I am happy to give some insight and answer some questions for you all. So yeah.
Love it. Thank you, Sophie. John, welcome home, as we say here at Wake
Yeah,
Forest.
thank you. Hey guys, I'm Johnny Bingham. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and right now I'm actually in a hotel room, so my lighting's kind of bad. I'm trying to figure out this like one overhead light, but right now I work at Epic Systems up in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm just traveling to Delaware this week. But I had a really long and strenuous application process. So I'm happy to talk about it, but nice to meet you guys.
What I am so appreciative of in all three of your stories is that you all have been doing all the right things the entire way along. And John, we get to see the fruits of your labor. I know sometimes work travel can be very glamorous, right? But we're so glad that you have joined us, and I'm interested also to have it from both the student, have the story from the student side and from the young alum side. Sophie, I am going to, if I may, start with you. It's such an exciting time in the life of a Wake Forest senior. Um, I would, I have had the pleasure of watching so much of the work that you have been doing. You sat in my office a week or two ago and did 10 applications in an amazing amount of time. It was very impressive. You were right on that handshake. And as I understand, have an interview next week. Tell us a little bit about the strategies that you've been doing and how seniors are doing.
Yeah, so I mean, it is like a lot of stress right now, but I will say going and seeing you and getting your advice and has really helped, especially like sending you off and having my resume ready for all the different jobs all the different sectors of jobs I'd be applying for, as well as having my cover letters ready and having that all planned out and being able to alter it for different skills and different jobs. And I have this huge Google Doc that I have, and I switch in and I switch out based on the what jobs are seeking and the skills that they would want. So I would say being able to go to the OPCD and have all of this stuff ready and being able to do that on my own as well. I feel a lot more confident now going through interviews and being able to just gain that experience. I tell myself to apply to at least 10 a day. That sometimes doesn't always work with some busy days, but slowly I've been getting some interviews ready, and whether I'm completely interested in that role or not, I will say I've become a lot more comfortable being able to talk about my experiences and being able to give my elevator pitch off the dome. So yeah, I would say that it's slowly progressing, but I feel a lot more confident in what I'm doing now.
I love the idea about how you have stayed flexible in your thinking. In other words, applying broadly and going ahead and putting that application in, and whether it is something that just made your heart sing or whether it's something where you're getting more experience interviewing for the thing that does energize you, that's a great way, that's a great strategy. So I love hearing that part. And Knox, you have also been a frequent flyer in our office, and it has your wonderful news has just come recently. Will you speak to what it's like for seniors right now before they land?
Yes, definitely. So I recently accepted and signed my offer over spring break. So in the past few weeks, it's been a whirlwind. But I can also speak a little bit, like Sophie was saying, to kind of the stressors of thinking you need to find a job in the fall and it carrying over and having the scary feeling that graduation is coming soon. And so I think just knowing that the interview process really is a process, especially with different companies. And I think one thing I had to work on, especially after talking a lot with Patrick and doing interview practice and that sort of thing, is also just keeping my options open the whole time. I'm someone that can become very narrow-minded. And so when I would get an interview, I was so excited and would think that that was the end all be all. However, it's definitely not. There's been many rejections. And so just reminding myself that to continue to put in the work and to continue that process is really important. And I think just staying optimistic that the deadline of graduation isn't a deadline to find a job, that it will
Mhm.
continue after, is what I found myself telling other people and myself throughout the process.
It's an exercise in grit and perseverance and resilience because that is inherently part of the process, getting the yes for an interview and the no for an interview and still getting up and doing again. And I appreciate what that takes. And I think it's important for parents to know that that's what this process is like. And so I appreciate how you just said that. And and that you sort of are sharing from that perspective because it's important for us to empathize with our 22-year-olds who are going through a lot. And now I'll going through a lot and then going on. And Johnny Bingham over here, I think about your progression from walking across that stage on Hearn Plaza to where you are now. And I would love to hear from you. I know you remember this time well. Could you briefly tell us about what that progression was like?
Yeah, from like going to Wake until
Hearn Plaza
yeah,
and
everything.
then to DC.
Yeah, I'm not in DC now, I'm in Madison, but um I mean it's definitely like graduating with no job was not very fun. One thing I will say is that a lot more people graduate with no job than you think, and you don't realize that because everybody kind of tries to hide it. And also like everybody posts on LinkedIn and you're always like, oh my God, everybody has a job, but that's just not the case. It's not really that big of a deal to graduate with no job. Anyhow, um, yeah, the application process is basically like it's a full-time job and just getting rejected every day because you're applying to like 10 different jobs and just getting rejected from all 10 pretty much every single day, all day. And then you interview and you prepare and it's a full-time job. One thing I will say is I really appreciated like everybody around me just supporting me and being pretty chill about it because you already get enough pressure at Wake as it is. It's just like the highest pressure scenario of all time, not having a job at Wake. And one thing I appreciate is like my parents and my friends just being like, "It's okay, dude, you'll get one." And it ended up being the one job that I quick applied to on LinkedIn that I never even wanted. That's turned out to be like really great experience and like an ideal job for somebody in my position. So yeah.
I love that story, and I sort of love the idea of the unexpected gift, right? The quick apply that actually ended up being the one. Johnny, will you speak to sort of what I remember was that you used the OPCD services we met after graduation. And
Yeah, I mean,
that's a
yeah,
real thing for students.
yeah, 100%. Um, I would say that going into the office was like a huge stress relief for me. Just being able to like, I don't know, talk to somebody that sort of knows what's going on. And it definitely helped with interview prep for sure. So that's the biggest thing I think it helped me with. But
I appreciate that because I think most of all, we want students to know and we want parents to know that the relationship with Wake Forest does not end at graduation. It is a 40-year commitment we are making to our students and our alumni of any age. And so I love the idea that we should be encouraging our seniors to stay in touch and to keep going. That we are here alongside them. So, Knox, if you were thinking about advice that you have for seniors, what would you say?
My biggest piece of advice, I think, this is a hard question because I have a lot, but it would definitely be don't compare yourself to others, especially other seniors with jobs, without jobs in the process, far along with return offers. I think I love Wake. It is competitive at times, especially in the job process. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen throughout senior year. But I would say to all seniors that everyone is trying to get different jobs and they're all looking for different people. And everyone at Wake, although we do similar things and we're at the same school, is very different. And so utilizing your own skill set and being confident in that and not comparing it to other people, to other majors, what internships they've had in the past. That would be my biggest piece of advice.
Hmm. Comparison is the thief of joy. I really love that you went ahead and surfaced that for all of us. Sophie, for parents who are listening, what kinds of things are helpful for them to do for their senior?
Yeah, I would say being able to be encouraging, but not I talked to my mom about this. I think she's on here. Hey, mom. I would say being encouraging, but not putting too much pressure. Because I feel like as seniors, we're already feeling the weight of the future to come and being in a different place than we've been in the past 4 years, and being curious maybe about how they're interested. And rather than asking, like, have you applied to more jobs today? Because I feel like that just makes it a little bit more makes me want to freak out. But in being able to celebrate effort and not outcomes, just the small wins when you get an interview, and I feel like that would help build your seniors' confidence and also helping them network as well. If you know anybody or anything in the industry that they're possibly curious about, just making a soft intro and offering to do that can really open doors and can be a huge push towards opportunity.
We have your parents to thank for really being in tune with that. That is good advice for other parents. We have certainly seen that. Um, I was interested, Johnny, what would you say to parents if their student hasn't yet landed? What advice would you have for them and things they can be saying to their senior?
That's a good question. You can't really say much because, I mean, if they're applying and doing everything they can, it's just kind of the effort doesn't necessarily mean an outcome, like you were saying, Sophie. But I think just being supportive and understanding that it just kind of sucks is would be like my advice. It's not like a fun process to apply to jobs. It's really monotonous. And also, I one thing I will say is like the jobs that might not seem like they're viable jobs at the start, when you get the offer, and like in my case, I took it, a job that I just like did not think I was going to enjoy. Sometimes those end up being the best ones, and so I think like being more open, I guess, to different opportunities would be another thing I would say.
So staying open and going ahead and trying to think through the idea that all jobs can be really helpful. Want to get in, and one of the things we talk about in class a lot is that your first job, you're getting paid to learn, and that is your starting point, and you're getting paid to learn, and your first job is not going to be your dream job, but it will be a job that will help you get closer to the kinds of jobs that are interesting for you. Last words that you would share with parents. Sophie, I'll start with you. That you would, I guess I would say words of encouragement to parents and or to other seniors.
Um, I mean, I would say just keep keep doing what you're doing, put in if once you put in all the effort that you can do, if you're thinking to yourself as a senior and you're thinking to yourself, I could be doing more, you probably should be doing more. And I think that obviously it's a stressful time, but we're all going through it. And I think Knox was saying we're all in a different timeline based on your interest and what your major is. So try not to get too overwhelmed with what your friends or what your peers are doing and focus on you and what you're doing because it's all going to work out in the end in some.
It is. Sophie, just for fun and games, will you say, just because we have all so many Deacon allies here, what kinds of things are you looking for just in case someone has an idea for you?
Yes, so I am very interested in marketing or PR. I love to be creative, so a lot of the jobs that are opening up right now, I had to wait a little while. All my friends were getting jobs, which was very stressful for me, but they're all in completely different interests, completely different majors and minors. So a lot of the communications, marketing jobs have been opening up right now, which is exciting. So yes, so that's what I am trying to do
I love it. It's your time. This is your time.
right now.
You're in the
Yes.
right spot at the right spot at the right time.
Yes.
Fabulous. Knox, what would you say that some strategies, success strategies for seniors?
Yes, I think use your unlikely resources. A lot of the big interviews that I was able to get or the job connections came from either really unexpected people or because I had told someone that I was looking for a job that was a friend of a friend, and their cousin said, "Oh, they actually work at this very cool job in DC. You should check them out." And so I think knowing that it's okay to use those resources and it's not a bad thing is something that I would really reiterate to your students, your kids, everybody, especially even parents, knowing that Sophie mentioned this, but knowing that you all have friends of friends and using your network because it definitely runs very deep, especially at Wake.
I agree. And being comfortable, something that you just said, being comfortable having those conversations and accepting help. You know, we are wired as humans to want to give help, and sometimes it's hard to receive it. And so I think normalizing this idea that everyone wants to help and it's okay to do that. I really appreciate what you just said. All right, Johnny, what would you say for students? What would be the thing that here we are in April that you would say students should be doing right now if they're thinking about this and have the bandwidth to go ahead and do their search?
Yeah, I think looking into like what companies are actually hiring is probably like being a little more thoughtful about applications because a lot of times companies will just not take off applications from their sites, so you're just pointlessly applying. Um, and also like when you do have a lead on a project or not a project, like a application or an interview, taking the time to like really prep for what you're going to say, like your emails and your responses to everything, making sure that they're pretty um, dialed in, I think is really important because you're only going to get so many opportunities. So yeah. Also, I will say my company is totally hiring right now. I work for Epic Systems. They're just like got really lucky somehow. I think um, in my particular like industry, they're doing well. But I'll drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to have their. I think this is all parents on. If they want
Yes,
to
yes,
reach
it
out.
is. And you're right, Epic is exploding. And I love how much they love Wake Forest students. And I think the reason I thought you were in DC, I think I thought you were visiting one of our mutual friends there. So
Yeah, I was. I was.
yeah, okay, good. I was
No,
like,
you're
how
not
did I
wrong.
pick DC? Yes,
I was
I
in
thought I
DC.
had a
Yeah.
feeling you were visiting our friend. Excellent. I love it. All of these, true to the point that Johnny and I are discussing, all of these Wake Forest relationships persist beyond graduation. And so, to the degree that it is your friends, your family, our allies that are part of our alumni network, we are all here for our students. And Johnny, look at that. That is such a great example of no Deke left behind, all Dekes rowing together. I just deeply appreciate all three of you spending this time. Knox, I'm excited for all that's happening. Sophie, we will be thinking about you with that interview next week. Johnny, I hope you get home safely. And thank you to all of you for being such great representatives of our Wake Forest students. Grateful for you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Thank you again, Sophie, Knox, and Johnny. You guys were amazing. So great thoughts, great advice, great experiences. Um, Heidi, I'm going to wrap up here with a few questions that we got when we asked parents to send us questions in advance. And one of those questions was just about the idea of a gap year. Do you see students taking gap years? And if a student's interested, thinking that maybe they need a year of something before going to med school or law school or something else even, what kind of advice do we give them? How can we help them?
We just had that discussion in class today. I think that what we have to think about when we talk about a gap year is this idea that we need to be strategic. The gap year needs to be able to tell a story about why the student chose that particular way to spend 12 months and how that kind of leverages their opportunities to be a good candidate for what is next. That a lot of times that happens with medicine. That's a great way for students to be thoughtful about research or doing clinical hours. And I would say, so that would be the med school piece. We can help students find that research. We have found many research opportunities. We can point them to people who are doing that kind of work and often the alumni who are running the labs. So I think that is one piece that we think about. We also have the EMT course that students may have already completed. It's another great way for our pre-med, pre-health students. Law is an interesting, different kind of a situation. And so for our students who believe that they are going to law school and want this gap year, we really need to go ahead and be sure that we have correctly set their personal branding. We've had several students who are trying to go ahead and get a job before law school, but we have found that some of their personal branding actually says, I'm a pre-law student. And that is a very common thing. It happens often. And so making sure that that student who may in their hearts believe they're going to law school, but wants a job right now, we need them to demonstrate to employers how eager they are to get that experience rather than just being someone who's a short-term hire. So with law school, we have a lot of students who want to go out and get some work experience because it will help them be more clear about the kind of law they may want to practice. And if they still want to go to law school in 5 years, maybe they want an MBA, maybe they just want to keep working. So I think making sure that it's a job search for that gap year is really helpful.
Well, yeah, one of the things that I hear in your answer is, we talk a lot about the idea of really being clear about your personal brand. And that is not only your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your Handshake profile, how you're showing up on social media. These details really matter because when an employer is looking at them, if they see something that doesn't look right or maybe it isn't appropriate to me as an employer, well, then I'll pass because you're obviously interested in something else. And so I think that's really helpful. Like this whole, like you said, being very strategic and thoughtful. And again, I think, as we've said throughout, having a student come to talk to one of our coaches about their situation and helping them think through some of these details would make a lot of sense. It's hard to do it by yourself for the very first time. And it's hard to do it by yourself, especially in this world of sort of recruiting, technology, all the professionalism required. Like the bar is pretty high. Johnny sort of talked about it, like being prepared for the interview, practicing, like thinking about your emails, like these things all really matter.
They really do. And I would add, I think of a student I worked with in the past who was interested in law school, but working before, and definitely had the law school language on all of their personal branding documents. And one of the things, it's almost the strategy of that almost becomes it's ambiguous for students. They have not done this before. And so our students are trying to be so honest and forthright about what their plans are. And I think one of the things that we can offer them in coaching is to go ahead and say, that's your story. And those are the intents of your heart. But we can hold those and still tell your professional story and let you be the one who decides when you want to go ahead and change your path toward law school or other kinds of graduate
That's
work.
great. That's great. So another question was just, we have some students who are international students. They have a lot of interest in staying in the United States and working in the United States, but they may not have a visa. What kind of things can we do to help those students navigate this process?
I've been working with a student who is doing this very thing. We have purchased a service called Going Global, and it is a fantastic resource. And we have believed in it so much that we have felt that even if 10 of our international students are using it, it is worth it to us. Going Global is a great resource that students can use to see which companies are sponsoring. And so that is the last time I went through some of those opportunities with a student, there were 12 pages of companies that were hiring and had the opportunity to sponsor. And I watched that student's eyes just glow because all of a sudden they had hope that there were some opportunities that would work for them. I would say there's also in Handshake a special filter for international students, and they can use that filter to see which opportunities are available for them in their unique situation. The other thing that we do, we work closely with international student support services. In fact, they're in our building, and we have 2 career coaches who have extensive experience working with international students. Becca Chase and Shan Woolard both have done a lot of work and have such a heart for making sure that all of the support systems are there for our students.
That's great. It's really great that, the amount of both resources and people we have who we can help the international student. And so one of those other things that I think, which relates to what Johnny said, is in general, students shouldn't be too picky, but especially if you're an international student, like if your goal is to work in the United States, work for an organization, you may not know the name of it, or like at least put your hat in the ring, because you may come to learn that it's a great place because you're just getting started. And also you're trying to actually get your opportunity to potentially, get a visa or get a green card to be able to be here. And so sometimes it may not be your perfect job. And in fact, I mentor a particular alum who's international. Same thing. She's like, maybe this isn't my perfect job, but I'm just glad that I'm here and I'm glad I'm learning a ton. So I think that's an important thing to keep in the frame.
Yes.
Now, another question is just about DC. We have some students who are interested in DC. DC has been a place where it's like probably the number 3 place in terms of cities students go to work after Wake Forest. What kind of advice are we giving those students right now?
Well, I'm going to start with networking and building professional relationships matters everywhere, and especially in DC, because it's often jobs are filled before they're ever posted because someone knows someone. Who do we want to work with? Who do you know who's good? Who's coming? Who's available? So having those conversations and building those professional relationships ahead of the time that you really need to go ahead and have that job is critical. So we have a networking spreadsheet on our website that students can download and begin to fill. So going ahead and filling that wonderful networking document with the alumni that they can find on our LinkedIn page. So for students, sometimes it remains invisible to them that they can go ahead and sort the alumni on LinkedIn by city. And so that's a wonderful way for our students to go ahead and get a really good look at who's up there and who can help. Second, DC jobs are what we would call just in time. In other words, they will not be posting a job until the office or organization needs a person to come in. So students want to be on top of that and going ahead and really monitoring what's going on and keeping their contacts warm. In other words, checking in periodically. And finally, for students who are interested in DC, there is a career intake form, and they can meet our person in DC, Jennifer Richwine, who runs the Wake Washington Center, who knows everyone. She knows everyone, and she loves helping our students. And if I were coaching a student to go have a meeting with Jennifer, I would tell them to come prepared. Bring your best. Put your best foot forward. Have that resume ready, know the kinds of things that you're interested in, and be ready to go ahead and optimize all of the different ways she can support you.
That is a great answer. I think it's really interesting because as much as things are confused in DC, we have students who've gotten jobs very recently with different Congress people's offices and with lobbying firms and all the rest. And I think the other is that students are also recognizing, and I think we ourselves recognize, there's a lot of great opportunities at the state and local level too that students can affect change in that way too. So there's hope even, for our students who are very interested in the political realm or being in that world. So I'm going to sort of wrap with a final question is, any final advice that you want to give to the parents before we head off and say thank you for joining us?
I would say as a parent of Wake Forest alumni, I remember this time very clearly. And Sophie said something that I thought was very profound, which was recognizing effort over outcomes. And I was thinking to myself as a parent how important that is. I know that that's the support that she receives. And I thought it was wise advice for all of us as parents to recognize that our students are doing the very best they can and the best they know to do at 22, at 21, some of our seniors. And so I think that unconditional support and encouragement is important. And then opening those doors for your students to have informational conversations with your roommate from college, with your neighbor, whether it's an area of interest for your student or not. Having those kinds of warm, supportive relationships, learning that everyone has to do this is really important.
Thanks, Heidi. I'll give you one of my thoughts that, or a couple. One is that we get asked a lot by parents, are you telling students all this stuff that we're telling right here on this video? And I will say, yes, we are, but there is a reality, which is sometimes when we're talking to them, they're not listening, or sometimes they're not in the rooms where we are. So one of the things that I would say is know that you are going to get a link to this through the Office of Family Engagement website, and you can share this link with your child. You can even tell them, I went to this webinar. It was supposed to be for me, but I realized actually a lot of that information would be really good for you to hear. So please feel free. I mean, I think you get the sense that we are very open and we want parents to be part of the influential process to help your student get great, become career and life ready and have great experiences. That's sort of one big thing. Second is that we are available after graduation. In fact, we are working our office of, should I say, the Alumni Personal and Career Development Center, which is right next door with our team that's got a lot of relationships with alumni and helping a lot of alumni. Post-graduation is available. So yes, we are here for your child no matter what. And, as everyone's learned through COVID, like students know how to be in touch with us virtually, and that is totally fine. But I can't emphasize enough what you said, Heidi, like now is a time where it is a time of celebrating your child. It is a time to just sort of think about what an amazing thing they have done. They've come to Wake Forest, one of the most challenging schools in the country to be at. It is not easy to be here in terms of the amount of sort of work they have to go through to academically, and then all of the activities that they participate in. Like, in all honesty, their resumes are amazing with the amount of stuff that we try to help them fit into one page. It's like not the easiest thing. And we can help them find a pathway to something really good. And it may be something that you don't know the name of the company and you're not even sure like what they do, but the reality is jobs are changing, the whole world of work is changing, and that our students are incredibly professional, ready to work, and super adaptable. Like I wouldn't be surprised if if the market's not the greatest and they don't have the greatest job, in a few years when the market turns around, our students will be prepared to get the next greatest job. So yeah, just keep that long-term perspective, knowing that your child has made a great investment in themselves by being here, and they will always have access to us and our team if they ever have a question. I know, Heidi, you want to say one last thing to wrap up?
I do. Thank you, Andy, for giving me just a moment. I was just thinking to myself, what is rewarded is repeated. And so when we tell our students that we see that they're working really hard, sometimes that creates just enough momentum to have them go ahead and put in that next application. And for parents who may be wondering, are we reaching out to your seniors? The answer is yes. Your seniors are receiving emails. Sometimes we've called them love notes. We want them to know we are here for them, and they are receiving emails from their coach here in the OPCD. It may be a coach that they have seen, or it may be a coach who is supporting them as a communication major. But we are reaching out to them, and our fondest desire is that they will reach back out to us and come in and let us come alongside them.
So again, we say thank you to spending the time with us tonight. We are 100% here for your child and ready to help them in any way possible. Congratulations to you. We can't wait to hopefully see you at graduation. Brad, I don't know if you have a last few words, if you want to join us, and if you don't, I'll say goodnight, but there he is. Brad, you want to wrap it up?
No, I appreciate that, Andy. And I know this is a difficult time, folks, trying to be able to help get everything kind of perfectly wrapped up. This office is amazing. I think you kind of have seen and heard over the last 4 years everything Andy and Heidi do and their staff. Please take advantage of that and know they are there today and tomorrow for anything that can be done. But thank you, everybody, for being part of the program tonight. Andy and Heidi, thank you. Students, thank you for your great words. And we do look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at graduation. Thank you.
Go Deeks!
Go Deeks!
Go Deeks.